Norman Manuel, Saline, Kansas. There's two words in Mr. Robinson's report: population reduction. You're going to have to go back where we started. As the population increases, so do the candidates to commit crimes. Mr. Robinson says population reduction. This is a worldwide problem. We're going to increase the population in the next 30 years to how many billion? It keeps changing. The prosecuting attorney, I believe, has the option of not filing charges. Some of these charges they shouldn't even be filing. They can arrest them, bring them to the prosecutor, and can the prosecutor say, well, I'm not going to file these charges because they aren't worth having. Well, that's why we got more people in jail. Don't be filing some of these charges, but make the legislators remove these laws. You're putting our law enforcement people in a predicament. They've got to enforce the law. Remove some of them things. But it's still going to come back to population reduction. It's a percentage. Do the numbers. You can build all the jails you want. There are countries that are limiting the amount of children you have. You do not have the right to populate this planet. It's going to happen. You can see it down the road from 20, 30 years from now. I wrote the obituary of what's happening on this planet. And it's going to get worse unless you do something. That's about everything I've got. Oh, eminent domain. You're not going to use eminent domain anymore. This is already happened in other states. You ain't going to be able to take this land. It's already happened. In the state east of here, they tried to take some land. The court says no. So you ain't going to be able to build a new jail. It's unconstitutional. So that's, until you reduce the population, you're not going to solve this problem.
My guess is that's out of the control of the county commission.
But stop and go start talking to the legislators. Quit bringing up these silly laws. You got to throw everybody in jail for frivolous ideas. You put our law enforcement guys in a bad predicament.
Thank you for your comments.
I know, I've been there.
Anyone else?
Randall Holm, Saline, Kansas. I have one thing that I think needs to be looked at real hard that was brought up during the discussions, and that was that the number of trips has increased by 24-fold, while the number of inmates has only increased by 3.5-fold, roughly. We maybe should be looking real hard at what's causing those additional trips and start holding the attorneys that should be getting their jobs done accountable for not doing their jobs, and or any of the other issues that have caused that drastic increase in travel time for the inmates that are housed out of county. I'm also a firm believer that the great social experiment of being soft on criminals over the last 60 years has proven to be one of the biggest failures this country has ever seen. We have seen nothing but a drastic increase in violent crimes, alcohol abuse, and drug abuse within our country as we started slapping people on the hands instead of treating them more harshly in allowable ways than we are currently doing. We have taken too much of the penalty out of being in a jail and turned it into more of a break from society with air conditioning and heat and 3 meals a day for too many people, where being confined is not punishment, or at least not enough punishment to deter them from wanting to return. In too much of our society, a sentence to jail and serving jail time is considered as advanced education in the gangs they go back to. We need to make changes that jail is no longer a pleasant place for anyone to be at. And do it in a humane manner but still make it a bad situation to be in. I do have a strong disagreement with the woman that spoke earlier that kept referring to drug addiction and maybe alcohol addiction both as diseases. Neither one is a disease. It's a lifestyle choice for 90 to 99% of the people involved. There are some chemical imbalances within people that may drive a few of those to a disease category, but in the vast majority, it is a lifestyle choice, not a disease. And if we return to some punishment and education, maybe we can get more of them to make the right choice, lifestyle-wise. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Anderson, and I'm from Saline. I disagree with the gentleman that spoke before me about many of the topics that he was talking about. Because I work for a government agency. I also work with inmates daily, and my comment would be to maybe rework the bond schedule, lower bonds. I don't know why that wasn't realized initially. That should have been one thing that should have been done first before the pretrial program was put in place, any of these other programs, because we're spending money that way when we can lower bonds a little bit. That hasn't been reworked for several years, to the best of my knowledge.
Also out of our control.
Sure, but that's something that you can also speak with the people that be about. That would drastically reduce some of the population, in my opinion, before we go, and because we have the reasonable right to a reasonable bond. That is our right as American citizens, and so that is something I think that we need to reevaluate and rework. That I think that's something that should have been implemented prior to any of the other programs that have been implemented, and that was my question. Why was that assessed prior when the contractor was here doing the assessment? Thank you.
Thank you.
David Nolan, 608 East Republic, Salina. I had a few comments, but I wanted to get some clarity, if I could, first of all, sit down for this. But Roger, you were, if I understood you correctly, you were saying that you felt that the increase in the prison population was directly connected to when we started farming out, ascending to other, if I understood you correctly. And could you explain that a little bit?
Well,
I didn't understand.
Dave, let me stop you. We're not going to field the questions from that standpoint. If you would like to talk to Roger in a different setting, I would encourage that. But right now, we're wanting people to address the commission with ideas on how to better serve the jail population that we're dealing with, and we're not. The question and answer portion is over. So now we would like your viewpoints.
Yeah,
so
and
go ahead.
And that's fine. I'll be glad to do that. I just think that
Okay, thank you.
this public is here for the information, and that had me puzzled. If we're trying to figure out how to reduce jail population, I think it's something that the public needs to hear, just to understand what is going through the sheriff's mind. And as I no disrespect intended, I just didn't understand.
I understand that.
So, as far as my comments are concerned, I would join with Ms. Anderson in saying that some of the sentiments expressed about urging harsher penalty for prisoners is not what we're about as a civilized society, but it's really not what we're talking about here. We're talking about how to. So I think just it's important to put that out. I know that there are many factors involved. Clearly, many that have been addressed here, from drug use to bonds to financial situations. They are complicated, and we have to rely on public servants to handle it. And you, as commissioners, are looking at perhaps a single issue with, I'm sure you acknowledged, a lot of complicated input. As you said, it's interesting you have the little control over that. And I want to say that I'm indebted to Karen Shade in her comments and her research. Because, I think she's asked some very excellent questions. But one of the things that I'm looking at this, I'm still sort of nonplussed and still find a need for a better answer, is that when you look at a 2014 study compared to now, and there's nearly a twofold increase, almost double the price, almost regardless of that, I find it hard to buy that inflation is a part of that. And I know there are many calculations about the kind of facility we want, et cetera. But
Keep in mind that those are estimates too on his part.
I understand
Architectural drawings.
that estimate is
like
almost twice as much in 5 years, and I'm not buying the inflation thing. I mean, I get it. I think that the commission and the officials need to look carefully at that.
Thank you. That's a good point. Anyone else?
Good evening.
Well, no.
First of all, my name is John Blanchard. First of all, Chairman, Commissioners, and staff, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge and thank you for having this town hall meeting, especially at a time where a lot of people could and did attend. Boy, I tell you what, from the last time we had this issue come up and when it went to referendum, I thought I knew a little bit about the jail and the problem, and I think what this all illustrates is how things evolve, opinions evolve, conditions evolve. Ms. Grievous, great job on the drug court, the innovative programs. I think they're doing great. It sounds like the pretrial has great promise. One of the things that has remained consistent for me is that when we were going through this the last time, Douglas County was going through the same thing. I read an awful lot from an organization called Kansas Appleseed, and one of the biggest recommendations they made that hit home with me, and I have to say I agree completely with Lene on her comments, and that is that what their suggestion was for the community of Douglas, for Douglas County and Lawrence, was the best benefit that they could approach their problem with was a state-of-the-art mental health facility. And so I noticed in your option number 4, the Greenfield option, it was the only one I saw that had any mention of a mental health facility. And so I would ask you, we had a lot of, we have people in the room that are mental health professionals, and I am not one of those people. So I would ask that maybe we draw upon the significant expertise we have in this community on mental health, help to make that part of the solution with the rest of this. But you have a big problem on your hands, and I tell you what, I have confidence that this group can, together, and the community, make it happen this time. Because mental health is a disease, substance abuse is a disease, and I think that a lot of us do recognize that. What I do know, that this team that you guys have here will rely upon professional opinions. And the study also, I'd like to, if you can, let us all know where we can read more about this study. But I also know individually and as a group, you guys have a lot of compassion. And I think that's going to be an ingredient that is going to be very necessary for whatever solution we're going to find. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for your time. Anyone else wish to address the commission?
Evening. I wasn't going to speak till Annie called me out. So, Amy Norton, I am the Deputy County Attorney. If anybody needs me, my office is upstairs in room 302. I just wanted to address a couple things since this is a public information situation. Overall, in the last couple of years, the amount of crime committed in this community, the amount of cases charged by our office is down. Unfortunately, the severity of the type of crime that we're seeing has gone up. The pretrial supervision program does not address the most serious type of violent crime. I don't believe it addresses the most serious type of drug offenses, drug trafficking type crimes. What it is addressed is the sort of I hate to use the word mundane, but the sort of more run-of-the-mill type offenses. I do think it will get people out of jail faster. Unfortunately, with the increase in violent crime, which is prompted by 1,000 different factors that we could talk about all night, it's not going to solve every problem. It's not going to get every inmate or defendant out of jail faster. Somebody talked about the delay in the actual process of getting a case through the system. In the last couple of years, our overall time of getting a case from the time a person's arrested to the time the case is resolved, we are between my office, defense attorneys, the courts, we're getting faster. Somebody talked about a delay between the time you enter a plea and the time you're sentenced. That's set by statute. In a felony case, there has to be something called a pre-sentence investigation report prepared. That has to be done by the court services office. That requires an officer there to track down somebody's entire criminal history, talk to a victim, collect restitution information, and prepare what I think is up to about a 12-page report, and that's for one offense. If there's additional offenses, there needs to be additional work done, and right now it takes that office about 60 days to get those reports prepared. So that's the reason there's a delay between plea and sentencing. Also, if they're like in a DUI case or a drug and alcohol case where that's an issue, there has to be an evaluation done. That has to take time to get the report done. So we're not just basically entering pleas and just letting people sit in jail. There's generally a statutory reason for why that delay is occurring. Continuances by defense counsel. I don't want Linda to be mad at me. I'm not faulting the public defender's office. I respect every one of our defense attorneys that we work with, but the public defender's office is so understaffed and so underpaid that they have occasionally in the last couple of months actually had to stop taking cases. That requires us to get what we call conflict counsel. They are not always local attorneys, so Sheriff Solon is correct. It is a self-made problem with contract housing. An attorney who does not live locally in Salina is not going to have the time to come here, find out their client has been shipped off to Ford County or Washington County, and then make that 4 and 5 hour drive round trip. Those other jail facilities, some of them are nice and will let their clients use the phone and make phone arrangements, and at least they can talk to them by phone, but not all facilities do that. So I do say it is unfortunately a self-made problem in that we have attorneys who literally can't access their clients, and that does delay the process. It's not the defendant's fault, it's not the attorney's fault, it's just that's the problem we've created. So I do think a couple of these proposed solutions would certainly help us in that respect. In terms of mental health, last thing I wanted to address, if you are, your attorney has any indication that you have a mental health issue, they get a mental health evaluation or, a competency evaluation. Those are generally paid for by the county. Unfortunately, if you're found to be mentally ill, there are almost no beds to send you. It takes about 4 months now, I think, Sheriff Solon, to get somebody to Larned State Security Hospital, which is where the law says we have to send them if they're found to be incompetent. So that's another reason why, unfortunately, folks who may present with mental health issues aren't being addressed in a timely or speedy manner. And again, that's not before this commission. There's not much this commission can do about that. But I just wanted to take an opportunity to sort of address some of the issues that I've heard. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the enlightening comments. Appreciate it very much. Anyone else?
My name is Patty Killingsworth. I live at 513 Russell. I just wanted to agree with the one gentleman who said that they need to stop prosecuting for just minor things, because the jail should be more for the people that are a danger to society, not just the neighbors afraid of them, or I have a few examples that I could give where like somebody just broke a neighbor's flower pot and got arrested. Now, that's totally uncalled for, and that person was prosecuted, and when a family member fights domestic family disturbance, that's You don't need to charge for a little penny anything. Put them in jail. A lady that couldn't pay her dog fine, couldn't bond out, she sat in jail for 6 weeks. Now, we don't need to prosecute the people that are not a danger to society. Let's keep the people in jail that need to be in jail and let some of these out that are not a danger, that we know for a fact that are not a danger, just because they can't afford their bond or they can't afford to pay their fine, they should still be able to get out of jail. And that should allow more space for the ones that actually need to be in there, which I know some that do that actually get out. And you kind of wonder where the balance is on somebody that did something that's kind of criminal, somebody that did something like can't pay a fine, one's in jail and one isn't. I think we need to look more at how many charges get pressed and for what reason are we pressing these charges, and ask ourselves, is this person a danger to society, which a lot of these people aren't. And we could probably fill up or free up a lot of the beds if a lot of these people that weren't a danger to nobody other than maybe the neighbor, let them out of jail.
Thank you for your comments. One more? No? Oh.
Hi, I'm Sheila Shelberg, Saline resident. I did have a question. It wasn't answered, so now it's going to become a suggestion or my comment. Would there be a possibility to ever consider doing more personal bonds for things like driving on suspended or other minor traffic issues that put people in jail over the weekends or for an extended amount of time where they can't already pay their fines, so now they've lost their job, so when they get out of jail, they have more fines that they can't pay. Would that be a possibility? Because I just think that needs to be looked at. Building a bigger place to house people for, it's just kind of like, when do you stop? Like, might need to go get some acreage or something at some point, unless you address issues that are actually going to make a difference in people's quality of life.
Thank you. And I assure you, we have talked over that very subject at hours at the end. So, all right, it looks like that's probably the size of the public comment. I want to thank every one of you. The comments that I'm hearing, they've headed pretty much down the same path, it seems like, in sometimes in a different way, but down the same path. So I would like to ask if there are any commissioners who would like to comment, Molly or Roger?
I just want to thank everybody for coming. I think that it was important, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for calling this. And this won't be the end of the conversation, I assure you.
Not by any stretch. Roger, anything?
And just thank you for all the input and the work for everybody that did this whole committee thing, you know, and thank all of you for your comments and your questions also.
And so I appreciate the attendance and the concern of the citizens.
What?
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Well, as Commissioner Shadwick alluded to, this won't be the last one of these meetings because, you know, we really haven't discussed this at all among ourselves. We've all had the reports and trying to digest it. We welcome your emails, your comments. I'm sure that Sheriff Solden, Andrew, and Hannah, the commissioners email us, Annie. You know, we need help. You know, we're not the smartest. No, the four of them are pretty smart. I better reserve that comment for myself. So, at any rate, thank you again for coming, and we're trying our best. I can promise you that. So, I would take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded that we adjourn to this evening's meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're done.